So right here, we've got a number line, and it's asking us to kind of make sense of these numbers and relate them to each other. So we're going to replace the little circle space with a less than or greater than sign to make sense of these two numbers and their relationship. So if we're looking at A, -6 is right here, and -2 is right here. With that, we are going to use the less than sign to show the relationship between the two. I opened the wrong document here. So here it is. Okay. So we can say that -6 is less than -2. How about 3 and -4? Well, 3 is positive. So anytime you see a positive and negative number, you know that positive numbers has to be greater. So that would be greater than -4, right? And you can use a number line as a reference to help you see, okay, which one's farther to the right? Well, that one's going to be bigger. Now we're going to read some descriptions and we're going to write an integer for the situation. So there are some situations that we can use negative numbers to describe, like if you were in debt, then what's going on is you don't have enough money and you actually have negative amount of money. And so if I were to say I am in debt, I have $20 in debt, then because I literally don't have this money and I'm actually owing $20 to someone, then I would say I have -$20. So we can use a negative sign to show certain situations. So let's read number 1. 2 inches less than normal. So if normal is right here and you're 2 inches less, you're below normal. So you would be at the -2, right? 2 inches less than normal, okay? A deposit of $50. So let's think about deposit. That means you're putting money into the bank. So if you're putting money into the bank, you're increasing the money in your account. So would that be positive or negative? I think that would be positive, right? So we'd say a positive 50. And we don't usually put a positive symbol to represent positive numbers. We just put 50, right? So you could just write 50 instead. Number 2 here, 13 degrees Fahrenheit above average. So above average means more, right? You're not decreasing. So we'd say above average, positive 13 or just 13, right? Number 4, a loss of 8 yards. So if you're losing 8 yards, then I think that shows kind of a negative, right? You're not gaining that. So that's a -8 there. Okay, why don't you guys try these 6 problems? Just replace the circle with a greater than, less than, or equal sign to make sense of these numbers so that it's a true sentence. Okay, so let's take a look at what you guys have. With this, let's see, for 5, 4 is greater than -4. 6, 8 is less than 12. 9, -1 is less than 1. For 10, 4 is greater than -3. 13, 9 is greater than -1. And 14, -6 equals -6. So if you're unsure like which direction the sign goes, this opening is bigger. And so that's going to go towards the bigger number. So if I'm comparing 10 and 2, 2 right here is smaller. That smaller side right here is going to go towards the smaller number. So I know you've done this in 6th grade, but this is just a little review for you, and we're making sense of the values between negative and positive numbers, okay? All right, now for a new topic. When we're looking at numbers that are positive and negative, if I am looking at the number 2 and -2, if we want to relate these two values to how far away it is from the 0, from the center of the number line, or from 0, we could conclude that aren't they the same distance away from 0? And so we have a symbol that represents the distance a number is to 0, and that is called absolute value. So if I said, what is the absolute value of -2? Well, you would say it's 2, because the distance of -2 to 0 is it's 2 spaces away. If I said, what's the absolute value of 2, positive 2, you would still say it's 2, because it's 2 spaces away from 2. So this is the symbol we use to represent it. We put 2 long vertical lines around the number we're looking at. And so if we think about this, no matter if it's a positive or negative number, if it's in absolute value, so I have -2, the distance -2 is away from 0 is 2 spaces away, right? No matter if it's positive or negative, if a number is in absolute value, the number will always be positive, because we're really just counting the distance a number is away from 0. And you can't ever have a negative distance. And so the absolute value of -4 would be 4, as would the absolute value of 4. Absolute value of -16 would be 16, and same with absolute value of 16. So basically you could summarize that the absolute value of any number will always be positive. So let's take a look at a few practices. We're going to take a look at 1 through 4 on your study guide. What's the absolute value of all these numbers here on top, 1 through 4? Well, -6, absolute value is just 6. 15 is 15. Absolute value of -12, just 12. Absolute value of 21, 21. All right, ready for another challenge? What if we have to work these numbers out in an expression, in a equation that we're working out? So, for example, number 5, we're putting the absolute value of these numbers and then we're subtracting them, okay? So that means I have to translate each absolute value into what they are before I work it out. So that means I'm gonna look at this as 4 and 2, and I'm subtracting the 2. So 4 minus 2 would be 2. Okay, -8 and -3. Now, because they're an absolute value, I'm gonna look at them as positive numbers. So 8 and 3. So 8 plus 3 would be 11. All right, I've got absolute value of 10 minus absolute value of -6. So that would be 10. -6 and absolute value would be 6. And I'm subtracting the 2. So this would be 4. Here I have absolute value of 12 plus the absolute value of -4. Well, that would be 4. And so I add them, and that equals 16. Okay, does that make sense? So now let's practice substituting the values for x and y into our equations and working them out. So here it says x equals 8 and y equals -3. So let's plug in the values into the equation and work out what the problem would be. So I've got 12 plus y. Well, y is -3, but I've got absolute values around it. So I'm going to put that -3 within the absolute value where y would go. And when I'm looking at this, what I have is 12 plus 3. And so the answer would be 15. Let's do one more. X minus absolute value of y. So that means x is 8. I'm going to replace x with 8. And you guys do this on a piece of paper or on the side here. Don't just write it on top, because I don't think yours is going to come out as clear as mine. But I don't have as much room, so I'm gonna just do them right here. Okay. Y is -3, so that's an absolute value. I'm literally plugging in -3 where the y would go. And I've got 8 minus absolute value of 3, so that's 8 minus 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. All right, I'm going to label these down here, 11, 12, 13, and do these here, okay? Number 11, 2, and then over, like outside an absolute value, that means multiply. It's just like a parentheses. So I have 2 times absolute value of 8, sorry, absolute value of x, I'm jumping ahead. So that's 2 times 8 plus 3, and then times absolute value of y, which is -3 here. And so that would be 2 times 8, which is 16. 16 plus 3 times 3, well, 3 because positive or -3 and absolute value is +3, so 3 times 3 is 9. So I can add the 2 and I would have 25 as my answer. Okay, 12, I'm going to plug in x, that would be 8 plus the absolute value of y, which is -3. And so then I have 8 plus 3, and that would be 11. 13. See, when I have this number outside an absolute value, you can think of it as a parentheses, as multiplying in some way. Okay, so 6 times absolute value of y, which means I have 6 times +3, and that would be 18. Okay, one more, 14. You can pause the video and do it on your own if you'd like. This would be 3 times 8, because 3x means 3 times x, and so 3 times 8 minus 4 times the absolute value of 3, and so I have, remember, order of operations, so multiplication comes first. This would be 24, and then 4 times 3 would be 12, so 24 minus 12 is 12, so my answer for 14 is 12. And that's all I have for you guys. So if you followed along with this video, then you should have this entire study guide done and you're good to go. I'll see you when you come back from your long weekend. Have a good day. Bye.